It's Eve 2020, June 1st. This is Matterall. Here with a group of friends. Let's talk about EVE Online for a bit. I want to say, though, we always do this just to anchor these shows into reality so you can have a timeline of the game as well as a timeline in real life. And oh my God, we're starting at 30 minutes late because I overslept, because I stayed up late watching the riots. Not on TV, but outside. I could hear helicopters and sirens and stuff. I don't live far from Santa Monica, so all that spilled over into very little bit. I don't want to exaggerate it, but there was definitely some activity like in areas near Santa Monica as well. I think that's like day 3 or 4 of actual United States riots. And now I think they're going global. At least today. So we'll see what goes on in that world. But for us, we're gonna hang out with EVE Online in that virtual world where it's a little bit, I was gonna say safer. All right, here we go. PCU peaking at 38,000. That's more like it. That was a Sunday though. And bottoming out at about 19,600 players. That looks pretty good. Currently, there's about 31,000. That's good for Sunday. Wish it was a bit higher. Maybe it will get up there. But that is super, super respectable. Much better than before. Oof, all kinds of things to look forward to. Yesterday, if you didn't catch it, before we get into stats, we had CCP, the content creators for the Triglavian stuff, and those guys are just really passionate about what they're doing. They're very excited, and they so the best part is watching players figure stuff out. So it was a very good show. If you want to catch that, it'll be out later today, Talking in Stations podcast. Or you can see the YouTube video this morning on Talking in Stations. Sorry, that's youtube.com/talkinginstations. I'm pretty sure that's the address. All right, let's go to the most violent systems. And Domain is just on fire because that's where a lot of the Triglavian, if not all the Triglavian activity is happening. So there's 5,000 ships destroyed in Domain area. In the Forge, you had 2,529 and Citadel 2,636. Domain just leaped in front of Forge and Citadel as the most active system in 24 hours for PvE and PvP. In Nullsec, Veil of the Silent tops the list of 742 ships destroyed, 394 pods. Delve comes in second place with 608 ships destroyed, 397 pods. And Insmother saw 589 ships destroyed, 401 of those pods were as well. Of the systems, first place is LXQ2, 349 ships. That is usually a system we see in the top 3 or 4. In Insmother, VD TAC, 227 ships destroyed. That is also, I think, becoming a regular system to watch for in Insmother. And then finally, iPay. That's a famous system in EVE. Veil of the Silent, 182. Some good stuff going on in Veil of the Silent. Well, here's the big news, is low sec activity. And we're looking at last 24 hours for systems. Prism, 718 ships destroyed. And that Prism belongs in Blackrise region. In second place, you have Tama in the Citadel region, 399 ships destroyed. And then in Placid region, you have Villiers, I guess, Villiers. Won't even try it. Villiers, 247 ships destroyed. Now, this is curious. I would have expected to see Rorivas on this list, but Rorivas status, its security status, is not low sec. Even though it behaves like low sec for certain things, for security, it is not technically low sec. So if we look at the most violent high-sec systems, that's where we'll see Raravas in first place. That is in Domain. And that is a Triglavian attacked system. 204 ships destroyed in the last 3 hours. In the last 24 hours, 2,447 ships destroyed, and 817 pods. So here's what to consider. Raravas is a high-sec system, but it's getting about 2,500 ships destroyed per day. And if you look back at low-sec systems like Prism or Tama, those have maybe 800, maybe 400 ships destroyed. So the activity is in high-sec. The PvP is in high-sec.
Actually discussed the security status on yesterday's show with Sledgehammer and Coyote. They said that they would have liked to have changed the true security status, but this was something to change the Concord response specifically was something that could actually be deployed realistic. It was like very, very low cost in developer time. So they were able to make that happen and not take up too much resources and make it not happen.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because a lot of stuff ties in. Sorry, that totally makes sense because a lot of things tie into that security status, right? And changing
it would have a lot of impacts.
Yeah, unintended consequences. So it's interesting. They additionally said, I think it was after the show, that when they looked at it, they thought, yeah, we'd love to change it, but wow, look at all these things that it's going to mess up. So what about Crimewatch? You know, there's an example of affecting the security apparatus of a system without actually touching its security rating. And I believe that's what they used.
Yeah. They said that with the Crimewatch rework, this was essentially the pieces of this were put into place, and they were able to hook into existing code in order to remove the Concord response. So the Concord ships will not come, and that's a low-sec effective behavior.
Right. And Crimewatch, for those that don't know, is an expansion. I think it was an expansion. I don't know if it was called Crimewatch, but
it was part of one expansion. I don't remember precisely when.
Yeah, it was more of like an effort as part of an expansion. But anyway, Crimewatch dealt with, I don't know. Can you explain what Crimewatch was? If not, I'll give it a shot.
It's the red, yellow, green. It's the safety system. So that little bug next to your HUD, that's a little black circle with a colored dot inside that's red, yellow, or green, is your safety setting. When you click it, you get a little pop-up. And green means that the system, the game UI itself, will not allow you to perform actions that will give you a suspect flag. If you set security to yellow, the game will allow you to get a suspect flag. If you set security, but if you attempt to do something that would give you a criminal flag, the game will still prevent you. If you set your security to red, then the game will allow you to do something that will give you a criminal flag.
Right. So that's when we saw those that safety mechanism, because there wasn't any of that before, and so sometimes people would actually accidentally get tricked into shooting somebody, and then the cops would come and shoot you. So it was like completely unknown to new players, like what was permissible and what wasn't. So if you have that green status on your safety, you're basically putting your guns on safety. It's impossible for you to do something that would get you in trouble with the law enforcement, basically.
We've had a lot of fun experiences with the safety system in our fleets, in our high-sec PvE fleets. We get a lot of people who or maybe from places where that doesn't matter, or played the game before it was put in, and they're dismissive of setting their security to green, setting their safety to green. And we have had more than one person get themselves concorded, and they just were completely unprepared. Like it was a logi that repped somebody, like people are not, these rules are complicated. They're not easy to suss out. The safety system is good to use, and we laugh every single time someone screws up and they don't get SRP.
Look at this. Fonsway for CSM, to be honest. Yes, I agree, says Chad. I agree too. Yeah, so the
one day
Crimewatch was an effort. It wasn't the name of an expansion. I think it was an effort inside of an expansion that essentially reworked all of that kind of security, and when the Concord would attack you, reworked all that stuff so that people could have more confidence in it. And so that's when they learned how to affect how the security apparatus or the police would work inside of a security system. They decoupled that. And that is pretty cool because that allowed them now to do what we have now, which is essentially make a high-sec system into, at least as far as police are concerned, a low-sec system. Now that's easy because, that's not easy, that's interesting because what are the characteristics of the low-sec status that Raravas has right now, for instance? Can you sino in a capital ship?
Yeah, so bushes and sinos are not allowed as if this system was high sec.
Yeah,
So-
basically it's still high sec.
Yeah, it's high-sec except
Yep.
that you can brawl it out without the police interfering.
Yeah, they've essentially turned an entire solar system into a battleship-sized faction warfare complex.
And,
Like,
and even that too, the first couple days, people were getting kill rights just for killing a ship, just like it was high sec. And they patched that out. So there's a lot of people now with kill rights because in low sec you only get a kill right if you kill the pod.
Mhm.
But it was so much high sec that they were getting kill rights just for killing ships, which is legal in low sec. They had to patch that out.
Yeah, and they haven't fixed the kill rights. Like, the kill rights are no longer being given out, that has been corrected. But people have those kill rights, and those haven't been removed. So I mean, it's not all that terrible. I don't think this is the worst thing in the world that's ever happened, but it was definitely a slip up. They wanted people to be able to engage freely. And what's interesting is that even with the kill rights, even once people knew, they still were killing freely, which is actually really great. Oh, Matterall. So I guess we got to talk now.
This is the best
So-
part of the CS. It's over. Voting's done, or voting is underway. There's not much more I can do or anyone can do, but yeah, it feels pretty good after going at it pretty hard for last couple of weeks.
How do you feel?
It's not there, so go for it.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I had to bail out for a minute. Phone was ringing. Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't hear most of that, but I'll assume that you came to a natural conclusion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. By the way, good to see you, Kenneth Feld. We're going to, because we can't really go into detail here, otherwise we'll just run out of time. I'm just going to say for the kill boards yesterday, real quick highlights. We had 3 Zinitras die, I think from the same owner. That was Unphased, Perstilence. What's his name? Apademik, Otomeya. So he lost 3 in a row in Cinque Zone. Anyone know what he was doing?
Losing Zinitras.
Yeah. Well, actually, he lost one in Cinque Zone in Lemirive, and then he lost one in Akio in the Forge, and then he lost one in Corazor Ami. So he was in 3 different regions with those things. And it
Sounds like the credit card warrior who didn't know how to fit up a dread or a faction dread.
Well, that's
this
the
thing is
romantic version of it. It sounds to me like he's giving them away or something, just trying to generate some content. Who knows? We'll find out about that. But yeah, that's 3 Zinitras. Those things are not cheap. They're about 25 billion each, 25, 30 billion. Sorry, more like 20, 25 billion. Also, there's more marshals on the kills. This is only, I'm looking at the 10 billion, and there's a ton of stuff. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do a special program for just kills today. But since I'm limited on time, I want to get to the news section of the day. Since today is a very big day for most, well, let's say it's a very big day for 40 players who are nervous as heck because today is the first day of voting. So let's move over to CSM voting. All right, here we go. Let's get some up here. All right, it's time for CSM voting. This is the 1 week that you have to put people in office that you want to. Have they released the ballot, like where you find your ballot yet?
Yes, if you log into the CSM website, there's a vote option there.
All right, I'm clicking on that. Here we go. I see. There's a vote section. Is that new?
Yes, it was just activated this morning. They don't activate the voting until the actual day.
Yeah, but I don't remember even the tab for vote. That to me seems very new. Could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that tab wasn't there yesterday. It showed up about an hour after downtime this morning.
There you go, everyone. If you're watching this show or listening to the recording or hearing it at a later date, and it's 7 days from right now, you can vote, and you should vote for characters that you want to represent you on CSM. With us, we have some of the candidates. Kenneth Fell, January. Am I missing anyone? How did the campaign go, Kenneth?
It went quick for me, but mostly because I spent 3/4 of it on an airplane.
Jeez, you're still flying these days?
I was flying back and forth to Tampa every 2 or 3 days, and I got to fly again tomorrow.
I hope you had mask and gloves.
Yeah, his. I do remember how much you fly around the world. Actually, you just live on a plane. But so it went fast, and it was fast, right? This is much faster campaign period. Usually, it was like a month and a half, 2 months used to be. And now officially, it's really only 2 weeks to campaign and 1 week to vote, and that's it. Has anybody seen the ballots that have gone out? I wonder how tied they are together.
It seems like the mechanism for sharing ballots in the old way is missing.
Yeah, there's
The old trick of you could link ballots and then click them and then press vote for easy block votes seems to be either intentionally missing or nobody remembers how to do it.
Oh no, I have the instructions. So people will remember. If I remember, people will remember how to automate your voting, essentially.
So it's not exactly automation. It's just that you see the old candidates. If you refresh your page, the candidates will be on a random. So actually, you can have a link now with the candidates in order, but it's the voter that has to pick each candidate and drag it to the voting area.
That's the part that's automated.
When they went to the new style of voting 4 or 5 years ago, that link where you automatically voted for what was on the link went away, and it doesn't exist anymore. So right now, what it is, you log in one time, you select your top 10 in order. When you log out and log back in with another account, a cookie will save that order, and all you have to do is log in and click vote, log out, log in with another account, click vote. There's no more actual link where it will post the 1 through 10 for you anymore.
Okay, so they did eliminate that because people would hand that out, like I did last year. You would say, "Here's a link," and if you click that link, it would put the ballot in order for you, so you wouldn't have to go around picking anyone, and then you just rinse and repeat over and over and over again. But now you at least have to do it once, right? So when you get into this area here, the vote tab, you have to at least pick your order one time, and then it'll save it for your accounts.
Exactly.
All right, well, that's interesting. I'm kind of happy about that. Not for candidates because that was pretty helpful, but for voters now they have to at least take a minute to pause to say, if I'm going to have to make this list, I might as well make it the way I like it instead of the way my tribe wants me to vote. So did you do any campaigning that was especially, I mean, really, you guys, I saw January and Juvenius on a lot of shows. Kenneth was busy a lot. How did you guys feel your campaigns went?
I felt like I did as best as I could. I tried to take all of the opportunities I could to talk to people and do interviews in talk shows and things just to get my platform out there. Yeah.
So a question from the audience here, Drake says, is there a TLDR for the candidates out there? Well, right above voting on this on the forums is candidates. And if you click on that, they'll describe themselves in posts. Now, if you're asking, is there a one sheet? Is there a one sheet? I could look at it and just know. I don't know if anybody's put together a one sheet for candidate descriptions.
Steve Ranukin has something pretty similar. His recommendations on his website.
Oh, he made recommendations?
Yes.
Yeah. Also, the interviews from last week on CCP Twitch TV, I think are available.
Yeah, if you go to CCP's Twitch and you go to their VODs, you can watch all of the CSM interviews that they've done in the past week or two.
Yeah, so my experience was the first time I'm running for I kind of did as much shows as I could. Everybody that had like a video platform to get my ideas out there, I went to. Yeah, it's been a great experience. Now let's see. My biggest complaint is that only like 16% of actual Omega accounts vote, and if we could double that, or even just 25% more than last year, I think it's going to be I think there are lots of candidates. Sorry.
Dog barking?
No, an alarm went off. Yeah, so I guess it's time for more different candidates. My platform is a little bit different. I'm thinking of a very different perspective of what's needed for the game.
Right.
And well, we
just want to know how it went for you campaigning. Campaigning is over now, but people are voting.
Yeah,
did you enjoy it? Or?
The thing is that for me, since my campaign it was very different, I think I had a different experience, I guess.
Look here. So on the recommended list for the 5-time CSMer, Fuzzy Steve, he has Mike, Brisk, Exuki. Those are the people who've already been on CSM. It also has Kenneth Feld on here in January. So I don't know if that's an endorsement or if he's just saying, take a look at these people. Well, so who are what are some of the things that you guys are voting on? You don't have to say who you're voting for, but what are some of the I don't know, issues that you guys want to see some representation for in the audience there? So write things down if you want. I want to have a look get a feel for what at least you 100 or so viewers are interested in seeing on CSM as far as, I guess, in the market share of ideas.
If they made an effort in their profile, that's a good plus.
Those are table stakes, right? Like, if you didn't do that, I think everybody was forced to write something. So, and that we laughed at this the other day, didn't we? Like, that resulted in one of the lowest amount of people running for CSM that we've had in a while.
Some people took the write something literally and just wrote yes or I am going to be CSM, please, and then that's it. Zero effort, really? Zero platform, zero anything. Like, nah, you're not getting in. Go away. But some of those people are ones that will be getting in because reasons.
Well, some people don't need to work for the browsers, the people who are browsing, they don't need to work for those votes, I guess they think. Otherwise, that's just a low
True, but
effort.
it's offensive. It's insulting in a way.
Right. Let's see. Make salvage lucrative again, says D Casper.
Yeah, the T2 salvage drones will help that.
I used to use salvage drones on when I would run missions. I would like kind of blitz through them in a Vindicator because it had a massive tank. It was kind of slow, but it had a massive tank, and just wipe everything out, and then just deploy the salvage drones to go and collect everything. And you would just cruise through missions because you could pretty much take them all. And the salvage drones were constantly working, picking up all your salvage for you. That was pretty cool. But I think that gave way to like some other method, I think. But salvage drones 2 might make that popular again. But it would lower the price of salvage, wouldn't it?
I suppose if it's more accessible, although having Tech 1 versus 2 salvages, if that's even a thing, I don't know. Better salvage skills actually doesn't increase the quality or quantity of your salvage. Is something that people miss often.
Yeah, the
good
T2
point.
salvage drones is more of a meme based on the industry paper that Dunk and Steve submitted to CCP during the last summit. That's kind of why that came up. But I mean, it would be nice to Tech 2 salvage, but yeah.
You're right. It wouldn't increase the amount of salvage, but it would increase the amount that you take because you wouldn't miss. They're more accurate at getting a result, let's say.
Well, the T1 drones can't salvage Tech 2 wrecks, period. At least I've never found them to be able to do it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
The failure rate with salvaging in general doesn't work in a sense of if you fail, there is nothing to get. It's actually created when the wreck spawns, whether or not it's going to be failure or contain so-and-so item is decided there and then. So your skills and your modules actually have no input on it. It's just how long it's going to take you, how many rolls of the dice it's going to take you to get to whatever the already predefined conclusion is, or whether you can do it at all in the case of T2.
Yeah, and like a T2 wreck is there. Say you need a salvage strength of 100 to actually get the salvage from it, but the most a T1 salvage drone can do is 95. You can sit there for 4 days and try and salvage that thing, and nothing's going to make it be successful. But one swipe with a Tech 2 salvager, and it will immediately give you the salvage.
Oh, that's news to me.
Sorry, big grunt there. Was I
I
muted?
wasn't going to bring up individual ballots, but everyone has their their reasons for whatever, and I'm not going to sit here and say any bad thing about whatever. People have to make their own choices, and at the end of the day, where an alliance leader puts you on their ballot is where they put you.
Yeah, you didn't campaign for it, I figure.
Well, I think there was a little more to it than that.
Yeah.
Gobbins knows when he gets stuck in industry where to come for stuff. So, there's that.
Yeah. So you're already known to him.
I know Gobbins pretty well. But that doesn't mean that real life knowing or whatever trumps diplomatic, crapola and Eve, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
gonna cry over it.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. It's just the nature of balloting, which accounts for a big bulk of CCP voting, is it's all traded amongst themselves. You'll see Horde trade with other groups that can turn out votes as well. So you'll see Fraternity have a second place candidate on their ballot because they can turn out votes too. And so Fraternity will put probably Horde as their second, the lead candidate of Hordes on their ballot as number 2. And that's vote trading among coalitions. And I don't know what Legacy's ballot looks like or if what Goon Swarms looks like. I didn't really see a lot of parading around of the ballots this year. Did you? Did you guys? Did anybody see
No.
any ballots? I wonder if they're feeling the pressure and don't want to publicize them anymore since they really only need to hand them to their people. Arya, you're in. Where's he gone? Oh, Venius, you're in Goon Swarm. Did the Imperium put out a ballot or something?
Yeah, the Imperium definitely has a ballot, but I don't know who's on it, and honestly, don't much care. I'm pretty sure I'm not there.
Probably safe bet.
Quite sure I'm still blacklisted.
Probably a safe bet that you're not on the ballot, but I didn't know you were blacklisted.
Yep.
The enemy of the state? I wonder.
There's not a Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and just a personal vendetta with some freaking Aussie dude got all pissy, and there you go.
Oh, I see. Interesting. All right. Well,
honestly,
yeah.
I didn't really ask around. I mean, when I first started campaigning and towards the end, I just offered, or asked for endorsements and support, but I didn't really hold anyone to it. I didn't ask to see a ballot either before or after. I figured the best thing I can do is work hard in my campaign to get myself out there and ask to be considered. And honestly, I feel a little bit weird going any farther. It feels like if I walked up to someone in real life and asked to see their voting ballot, and I'd feel kind of scummy about that.
Yeah, I did a lot of that, and it does make you feel scummy. Almost like I was so soured by the process that I was by very quickly into it. I was like, I hate this process. Process is horrible. The only way to contend for not the only way to contend, but one of the stronger ways to contend is to secure stuff politically. And that means diplomatic relations. That means talking with people. And that really feels like sacrificing your soul. And it's just, if you're not used to asking people for things, it's really hard to do. But it doesn't, I don't even know if it matters that much. They're going to do what they're going to do. But it's interesting this year. I honestly feel like there's either they're not putting them out there. They're not publicly touting who they're voting for. It's not, I guess that has no benefit to it, but it drives negative press against the fact that they have a ballot. That's would be my guess, if they were being smart about it. Let's see. Oh, a public fleet this morning with CCP in it. Oh, yeah. So I think CCP are actually going to Raravas or something like that. I think they've been active there. Okay, well,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Sorry. One thing about me and Goons is after Vile Rat banned me, we talked almost once a week. We became a lot better friends after he banned me than when I was in like a third tier pet, kind of sort of connected to them.
Isn't that kind of funny how it works in real life too? Like you're dating someone and then you break up and then you just become good friends. It's kind of amusing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this was back in 2007, 8, somewhere around there. So it's been a while.
Oh yeah, that's
it was back when Goons were in Declan, I think, whenever that was.
Well, They were there for quite a number of years, so that was a while ago. But yeah, it was a long time ago. And if it was during the days of Vilerat, that was a long time ago. Now, anyway, if you think about EVE history and the timeline. All right, cool. Any non-block candidates? Yeah. January, Juvenius, Kenneth. Oh, Kenneth is not... It's weird. The block candidate thing is kind of weird. It's more like not where the candidate comes from, because Juvenius is from Imperium. Kenneth is from PL. Neither one of them are necessarily supported as the... or paraded around as the top vote on their respective groups. So it's not really... Do they come from a block? It's more like, are they on that ballot that is negotiated by the leadership of blocks? And we talk about that a lot because it tends to dominate the results, right? 7 out of 10 last year, I think, came from deals or ballots, that were made with people's names on it. And this year, because there was such a fuss made of it last year, I don't know if this year they're parading those ballots around. We might see them released, but the only ballot I've seen has been secretly handed over to me. It's not publicly posted, so it's interesting. Yeah, the Oz, who's not here right now, is not. There's a lot of people this year that are not ballot. They're not block candidates, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I honestly think it's because 3 or 4 of the incumbent candidates decided not to run Sword Dragon, Omeka, Fuzzy. So I think
Omeka's not a ballot candidate, is he?
And Dunk.
And Dunk, yeah. So people are kind of inspired that there are more free seats, so they put their hat in.
Except if you're having a problem voting and you need some TIS advice. Actually, you can't have TIS advice, but if you want some Matterall, advice, except if you're having trouble voting, or otherwise you're free to vote the way you want or are told.
I can't say that I'll give a free Titan out whoever votes for me first place.
Yeah. Some of the people I see on here, like a Stedio or
you understand the stuff I do may take your internet down.
Yeah, I appreciate you give me a heads up, but other than that, I'm yeah.
Heads up.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me tell these.
What?
Yeah, I thought that was
Sorry,
I think that was Raph.
I was unlocked. I got a service guy here. My internet's going down, so I'll talk to you guys later.
all right, bye. I thought it was a soundboard.
You sounded real mad.
Well, you can't get too mad at Kenneth. Kenneth is like, he's a heavy in real life. So I think it just works. I can't tell you what he does, but it's like, he's an incredibly capable guy in real life as well as in the game. But okay, so we're going through here, and there are going to be some interesting matchups. Like Laura Secco and Exuki, they're both wormhole candidates. Do they split the vote or do they both go in? It would be really cool to see them both go in. Really cover wormhole space. But if not, if one of them goes in or if none of them come in, that'll be really interesting to watch what that result's going to be like. Other candidates that might be interesting that aren't here right now. Well, Juvenius, of course, who's here, who's Latin American. Actually, you're kind of like...
Quiero ver en español.
¿Por qué no? Vamos a hacer un... I was going to say we should make a show in Spanish, but I keep saying that and we don't ever do it. We will.
We should.
Yeah.
Maybe after the CSM is over, we can just plan it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny if you do something like that. Some people take it like, why are you insulting me by having it in a different language? Like, no, it's a celebration.
Something that I found out, I was putting out publicity out there on Zkill and other. It's that there's a great opportunity for Russian and Chinese type of content in streaming. A lot. There's a lot of traffic I say most traffic, social traffic has to do with Russians and Chinese at the moment.
Yes, because you know this, you put out some advertising or something?
Yeah, it's odd. I think most people that have been connecting to Zkill have seen my ads or close to seeing my.
Yeah.
If
So
you guys have ad block, of course you don't see them.
let's see if we see your ad. Well, anyway, the point is you put out some actual advertising through Facebook or through Google, or who'd you put it through?
It's mostly Google. Most of the social traffic that we have on the internet is usually YouTube and sites like Dotlan, Zkill, Eva Prizal. Those are the three best to put a campaign.
But do you put a banner up directly to Dotlan, or do you put it through Google?
I put it through Google. Like Google does all the work on because you have to target. This is not even expensive. It's not a lot at all expensive if you target it. Just it's about the price of like 5 plexes or something like that for just the whole campaign and paying the equivalent of 3 or 5 plexes.
All right, it's like $15-20 to get some Google ads up, and those will show up on places where EVE players are likely to go. And the results are you get some analytics on where people are coming from. And what did you see?
Exactly. So most of the players I saw were from Russia and China. I was surprised that there weren't that many Americans. Canadians were surprisingly lower than I thought. And I was very surprised of the amount of people playing from London. London was quite big. I said, wow, I didn't realize so many people play from. And actually, I got statistics for almost every place in the world, like Uganda, lots of places from Africa. There are players, people playing the game.
But are these people that clicked on your ad? Is that how you saw their
people who were presented the ad? So these are actually people who are connecting to maybe someone is saying that that's probably VPN. So I guess you can be right on. But it's surprising to see people from Argelia, from I don't know, Turkey, just looking at Dotlan, and it's a global game, and we talk about that a lot. And for me, it was pretty daunting to see so much people from Russia and so much people from China. It's a big, big world out there.
Well, we'll see if it's still big after the today. Actually, when the ruble changes to
yes, that's going to be big.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, the ruble is going to be essentially it's going to cost you twice as much in rubles to play EVE Online as it did before. Or like 30-40%, maybe even 50%. I don't know what the transition is actually, and CCP hasn't announced it. But
double.
Is it about double? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned, Juvenis, that your target or your traffic came from Russia and China. We have 2 candidates, one from each, Maria from Fraternity, and UAX from Legion of Death, and those are both Russian and a Chinese player, or that's where they come from.
Yeah, that's we'll see if they reach that audience.
I have no doubt that Maria is going to get on. Fraternity is a gigantic coalition, and I have no doubt that she's on the PanFam ballot. Or he. It's probably he.
Well, the character Maria is probably on the Horde ballot, and I assume as a number 2 because they're partnering on this thing. Who is Maria Taylor? Anyone know?
She the Chinese candidate? No.
Yeah, from Fraternity. Probably handpicked by Noros, who's in charge there. Well, we'll see if he or she wins. If they win, we'll do a special get to know you about Maria Taylor if she's there, because that'll be a pretty big win. Fraternity did have a candidate last year, and it didn't happen for her. I do think she was female. So we'll see what happens this year.
That Maria character is one of the only ones that caught my attention because they were the only one that mentioned anything to do with third-party development.
Mentioned what?
That I saw. Talked about development, making tools, making API tools, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because now
Well,
we've lost.
that's important because
Fuzzy
Steve
without-
is not running.
Without Steve, there isn't really. It's all about that side of the game, and from what I can tell, she's the only one that mentions it.
Well, okay.
I did on my campaign mention API endpoints and player crowdsourced development.
Well, this is not okay. So third-party development is not something that should be an afterthought. This is a critical portion of the development of EVE Online and its community.
We discussed this yesterday, and it was debatable, Fonsway, but
I would debate that until it is not debatable.
Good. Let me set the stage for this. Yesterday after the show, the devs that were on the show were gracious enough to hang out in our chat for an hour afterwards?
More.
Like 2 hours? It was a long time. And one of the things that came up, and there was a ton of people in there, so it was great. And they were just, it was really great to have them there because you could tell it was a real give and take, especially when Ashtarothi arrived. And you were in there, Fonsway. One of the things that came up was third-party development. So we debated it a little bit. And
yeah.
What'd you come away with?
So the point that I had been making during that discussion was that EVE Online is an all hands on deck effort in terms of development. There's no universe that I see in the near future or even perhaps longer in which CCP is big enough to employ enough devs to actually build the game properly and make it feel like there are no problems with this game. We are good. We are on the cutting edge. The technology is good. The gameplay is good. We're only looking at overall continuous improvement. Like that, the kind of workforce required to do that is massive, and they're not going to be employees. So if it's going to happen, it's going to be because a certain percentage of the dev hours put in, a large percentage, are going to come from players. And players have a unique position in that there's no budget. People just give time. When they want a tool to exist and they have the ability to build it and the drive, then they will build it and they'll make it bad. And then they'll redo it and they'll make it bad again. And they'll redo it and they'll make it bad a third time. And they'll make it bad 15 times until they make it good. And that never would have flown in an actual business, in a dev shop. Like that iteration would not have been allowed. That feature would have never come to be, essentially. So having the players as a forever resource and, to provide insight and actual code, is essentially a critical component of the development of the game. And the CCP's portion of that is to interface well, to foster that and enable it, and then to properly take advantage of that work once it is done, to take that code and to take that inspiration and take that design, reward the people who did the work, and integrate those features into the game directly.
But before I push back on that in a different direction.
Yeah, that was the point.
Yeah. Other games do this, right? Like you have a whole modding community that sits around a game, fixing it up, making different types of gameplay, and sometimes mods become their own video games and become more popular than the original video game.
So two specific different scenarios of this. So we have games that have developed out of modifications of other games, and that's an entirely unique thing. And then we have something like World of Warcraft, where there's the add-ons that you use completely transform the entire user interface. It makes things possible that would not otherwise be possible. Spending hours and hours and hours and days and weeks on a World of Warcraft user interface as a player, as an individual player, is not abnormal and highly effective. Eve is a different scenario than all of those, as quote-unquote add-ons are effectively not allowed. The game client itself is, a closed package. You're not allowed to OCR stuff out of it. Like, you're not allowed to have a program that watches the screen and recognizes things.
It's optical character recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do have something very little. That was part of my proposal, that you have the overview. You can actually personalize your overview as you want, with the colors that you
Sure.
want, with the information that you want. And
So
my
this is
proposal
good.
is, why don't we extend that to every part of the UI, modular? With
Right. So that's a good. That definitely a good suggestion. Like, I want to chase that down. I'm attempting to describe the specific difference in modifying. The existing third-party development efforts and abilities of EVE Online compared to other games. So the UI that we have now has a certain amount of configurability. It actually has a high level of configurability to compare to other game UIs, and that has added to its complexity. And the reason that it's so configurable is because it's not modifiable at all. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to point out Styx is running for CSM there, and he's got his little slogan here. This is hilarious. Styx for CSM. Styx is the fix. Carry on.
So the EVE Online client and user interface is non-modifiable. All we can do is tweak it from inside. Tweak settings. When we load an overview, that is, that someone has edited outside of the game. That's technically all settings that are, for the most part, with some notable exceptions, that are available in the game. They're checkboxes and things that you could type in sliders, controls that are available within the game, as opposed to an actual add-on package. So where third-party development exists for EVE is standalone applications, cloud applications that are hosted on the web. So like mutaplasmid.space, which is a directory for all public contracts for mutaplasmid rolled items, and a library for your own. That is a cloud-based tool that is entirely separate from the user interface. It's not an add-on, it's a whole application. And then you have things like PyFA and EveMon and JEve assets and every single spreadsheet that everyone has ever made. All of these are separate applications from the game entirely. And that's where, and that is, it's harder. It's a more natural route for an add-on to be adopted into game code. For Blizzard to look at World of Warcraft and look at the most popular mods and be like, we should do this. And because that's something that's already in the game, they could actually take code very directly. In the case of EVE, we're actually dealing with some level of separation between the game client and the application that we're talking about. So it's not necessarily as natural a transition. And one of the initiatives that I would choose to push, and kind of the rhetoric that I pushed yesterday in this discussion, was that both sides need to attempt to make more of a bridge. So that because there's not a natural progression from add-on to game feature, it's application to game feature. CCP needs to reach out more, have their developers, have their engineers, the people who actually write the code, work more directly. And I know that they already do work directly, but have in some official capacity work more directly with the developer community and adopt these features, with the most popular ones that seem to make the most sense. Use this as a stream of dev hours.
And they do it technologically, they do it socially, they look at what players are doing, they look at what works. I would venture to say that some of the stuff that you're seeing CCP do now is a reflection on some of the success that Talking in Stations had. I know I'm saying it myself, but if you look at it, conversational, transparent, and talking to a certain mid-level player, instead of devs having fun and having a lot of inside jokes, they're really trying to reach players with a lot of their efforts. So I think they do that socially. They've done it with other things as well. When there were, battle reports or reporters that would write articles and stuff, they had their own version of that. Technologically, they of course do the same thing with, fitting tools and that sort of stuff. I do think they look around, they see what's working, what's highly adopted, and in a sense, they benefit from all that experimentation because it's not on their budget, it's not on their time, and let players do it. I did hear from a guy that was at CCP a long time ago. He's like, "Do you think CCP has something better than Dotlan?" They don't. They use Dotlan. That's what they use because they don't have the time to build that kind of a tool set for themselves. Of course, they have much better tools in other respects, and they have all the data in other respects that the open community doesn't have. But it happens technologically, it happens socially, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, hyperlink is a clear example of a application that you used to use the API to get value to players, and it's actually integrated to the game now.
Right.
The Blink and stuff like that. It's now on the
So here's
a hypernet.
Yeah, hypernet.
Yeah, hypernet really
is something that players kind of manufactured on their own, and when they got rid of games of chance or gambling, CCP said, "Look, we'll try to get you something." I think that was, I think that was kind of let's give them something that they missed, but also I think it was somebody that could do it and did do it. I don't know if it was a huge effort on their part. I think it was a bit of a side project. It's my impression of it. Because it's very self-contained. It's very different than anything else.
Right.
But it's beautiful and very effective. And when I played it, I was like, I like this thing. It's fun. And I don't want to like it, but it's really great.
I do want to bring this back on because so there was an initial point being made, and the discussion was we're losing Steve. We're losing Fuzzy Steve Ronikin, who has been the champion of the third party. All third party development efforts owe pretty much their existence to this guy.
I like Steve, but a champion of third party is. I think there was some disappointment.
That's been his thing. Like he has always pushed for the third party developers' ability and tools and capabilities and support.
Okay.
Like that has been a large part of his platform. So he's no longer running, and there isn't someone to replace him. That was the setting for this discussion. So I said, well, it's very important to have someone on the council that cares about this, and is able to speak intelligently on the matter, because third-party development is very important to the game. So
the pushback on that is that third-party development being good for the game, this isn't like any other game. This isn't like we want to have different efficiencies to play this StarCraft or a WoW or something like that. This game feels a lot more. Well, I don't know if those are good examples, but an MMO has a certain style, and PV and player versus player in EVE Online is kind of one of the baselines of it. So when you have people that can develop and leverage their real life skills into building tools that help them in such a complicated game, right? This isn't an arcade game. This is a complex game where things over time, matter in a significant way, that you're building a lot of advantage for yourself. And sometimes those tools are private, like GARPA or whatever. That's a mapping tool that Goonswarm could use, and they could optimize the routes and all this other stuff to public tools like an appraisal system that's helped a lot of people. You could say nobody really benefited from that, but it was except the people who were selling things or buying things. They could see the actual value of something. But the idea that players can and do create tools that help them essentially automate a lot of the thinking that goes into this game. You really have to think about that. Isn't that a slippery slope into essentially botting, having computers do the work for you?
Right. So
that's something to be said. My idea is, if you can facilitate human interaction, it's a good tool. If you can substitute human interaction, then it's a bad tool.
Right. So these third-party tools, these external applications to Eve, they have, ESI provides extremely limited ability to take data into the game. Almost nothing is allowed to put in. Like, you can pop up some dialogue boxes, you can write route waypoints. Like, that's pretty much it. There's very little that can be
No, no,
into the
no.
game.
Actually,
Right.
one of
So,
the biggest,
well,
one
I'm
that
just
they have
describing in
is
terms of.
sending
Yeah. Go ahead.
the one that this alliance is using, that it's growing a lot, the alliance in HiSec, they're actually using an automated tool to send emails to new players, and they use the API for this. They
Right.
actually are.
Describe. So the word botting was used. So I was replying to the comment of
Okay.
at some point we're botting. So the answer is at some point. At no point are we botting, because we're not interacting with the game client directly. We're only interacting with game data and ESI. And ESI provides virtually no capability. I mean, really no capability for botting. So if you're saying that we're meta botting by making, automating processes that happen outside of the game,
I said it was a
the
slippery
answer is
slope.
maybe we are, but that's a good thing.
It's a slippery slope.
This is a gloves off sandbox. This is a problem solving simulator. Here.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was trying to interrupt, but I had myself muted to you, so you couldn't hear me. But what I said it was,
sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't botting it. It's a slippery slope towards it, because you're using technology to alleviate the complexity of the game.
Right. So I'm saying it's not a slippery slope. There is a clear line. It's clearly defined. CCP has drawn it for us. So all we have to do is live with the spirit of that and not try to violate it, which means we don't interact with the game client, and we only input data from ESI, and then everything else is fair game.
One of my friends had this tool that he used, that all of NC was using when they were ratting, that showed you everybody coming at you way before, 5, 6, 7 systems before they ever got to you when you're using your Oracle. And he would sit there and mine in relative safety, because alerts would go off on his computer saying there's a guy 7 jumps from you, and they had all the angles on you covered.
If that intel was reported by a player character, if the system is automated, but the intel gathering happens by players, then that is the perfect marriage of automation and engagement.
So what you're doing is synthesizing the communication. You're not actually identifying the ship yourself. You're synthesizing the communication.
Yeah, you're automating process. The player engagement with the game is there. You're using technology to refine and define the player's jobs. The things that happen outside the game client can be automated, and because they can, they should.
I think the deal was that if people were to spot something, they drop it into a channel, this thing would read what's in the channel and make calculations on how far it was away from you, and then alert you when it was coming in the direction of your position. And that to me seems like pretty strong radar. It wasn't foolproof, because Wormhole, he got killed and lost 2 Oracles to Wormholers, so it wasn't foolproof.
Yeah, but you have to be careful with that, because the communication is automated, but it needs player input in order to work. So it's actually not replacing player interaction. It's facilitating player interaction, but without player interaction, this tool is useless.
Yeah, it's creating gameplay, or rather it's refining and defining a specific slice of gameplay. So again, as long as the players remain engaged with the game, then whatever is automated is fine, especially if it makes those players more effective. And if that gives one group an edge over another, then
I see it a little differently. Is it creating more engagement or less? Because I have a feeling the guy that was mining is less engaged in Eve than he would have been had he been.
He's mining. He doesn't want to be engaged.
in a way,
fair
it's a
enough.
group effort. So people are on the fringes of the systems, and they provide the information to people who are on the inside of the systems, so they can mine freely or rat freely. So it actually helps people to have more cohesion in organizations, and you want to be on organizations that defend each other. So tools like this actually
Yeah, well.
help bigger groups stick together.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the problem, because there's less diversity. Big groups essentially want to stay safe. Sutonia says
here's
something. Hold on. Sutonia's,
Sutonia's comments in chat. I want to address and Araya, Sutonia and Araya both.
okay,
So
read
this
them.
is the line between botting and engagement. So if you're OCRing,
Read
if
the
you have
comments, though.
a program.
Wait, read the comments, though. Yeah.
Well, it's multiple comments. It's like a whole string. So I'm just going to sum it up.
Okay.
So if there's logs, there's screen scraping, which is also called OCRing, and Araya and Sutonia both brought this up.
Okay.
So it is possible to bot Intel. Yes, you can do that. It's not allowed. Like, that's not like what we're supposed. That's not what I'm discussing.
That's against the
Yeah. Yeah, that is against the rules. I'm talking about third-party development that is within the rules, and the use of those tools that is within the rules. I'm not talking about enforcement.
Okay. All right, yeah. So those that don't know, optical character recognition is an old technology where essentially the computer eye reads for you. So if you have something written on paper, you can actually take a picture of it and decipher the symbols and create the live digital text version of it. And apparently you could do it for screens as well, etc. It's come a long way. So we're going to have to leave it there because I'm out of time. We went over a bit. But I want to thank you guys for showing up. We'll continue to debate this. It's not going to go away tomorrow. So if you want to talk about it, jump into Talking in Stations Discord. Also, make sure you vote for candidates today for CSM 15 that opened up today. It will be open for 1 week. You need to go to the EVE Online forums. Under candidates, there is a vote tab. Sorry, under CSM, there is a vote tab. It's not under candidates. Under CSM, vote tab. And select your players and vote. And because they allow it, vote with every account. It should hold your picks in the same place for each account that you log into. Good luck, everyone. And we will see you next time. We'll do a quick raid here.